Hello, welcome to Westmarch Workshop. My name is Archon.
And I am Nineball. And tonight we have episode 15. There's been a new update for the patch 2.1 PTR, and we've got all the news that you can use. And
Oh
that was
yeah,
bad.
I
And
liked
I
it.
feel bad.
It felt so good.
Tonight on CNN. But,
Let's go. We're live, rolling.
yes. Here we
We're
are.
going smooth. We are
We're
professionals.
We are live unless you're listening to us on iTunes or Stitcher. And then we're not.
Still live. The only podcast that's live whenever you listen.
This is true. We are live for you. You can make it your own. Turn it into your own thing.
Yeah. This is. We only exist in the now.
Because is it possible to exist in the past? I don't think so.
No. Westmarch Workshop, where we answer your deep philosophical questions that you never actually asked.
That they are that deep. Your subconscious hadn't even registered it yet.
Yeah. I think that was pretty good. That was the good news is the intro's over, so we can start the show now.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
I don't know where we went there. The train derailed a little bit, but I think we got the gist in there. People know we're talking about 2.1.
Yeah, I would hope so. We could be talking about 1.1.
Let's do it. Let's just change it up on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
No preparation. We're just going to talk about patch 1.1 today.
Patch 1.1. It is the PvP patch.
That's true. It has finally come. We never got it, but PvP is here.
Yep.
Yeah.
That still is just like that beautiful little conspiracy theory. That's why there was no 1.1.
I believe it.
Oh.
I believe it. Someday we're gonna get like after the second expansion, a few months later, when PvP's ready, 1.1's gonna come out.
Mm-hmm. But watch it be like patch 3.1.1, and he'll just like sneak that in there, you know?
A little hidden patch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. So how was your week in gaming?
My week in gaming, unfortunately, didn't have very much gaming in it. Been kind of busy. The missus and myself came to the conclusion that we need to move, and so it was kind of going and looking around for some housing options, as well as looking at potentially, getting a new job and such. So just a bunch of real life stuff all been coming together this past week.
Being an adult.
Yeah, that crappy thing. I did put a little bit of time into my softcore Crusader to copy over to the PTR to mess around with that, but that's been about it. That's been about it. Haven't had much time for much else than that. And then just what was it? They announced like this new thing for Hearthstone, so that actually got me playing yesterday a little to try and get gold. Because they have the new Naxxramas expansion player add-on thing, whatever they want to call it. That looked interesting, so I played a little bit to get a little bit of extra gold in that, so I don't have to pay real money for it.
Nice.
But yeah, that's my terribly interesting past week.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for that Hearthstone PvE stuff. I need to get in there and try that out, because I played that in the World of Warcraft trading card game. They came out with like raid dungeons where one person plays as the raid. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things I absolutely loved about the WoW TCG, is because it was just so different than anything else that had come before it in terms of the trading card games. Is that whole dungeon, or I guess they never really came out with the dungeon deck, so they just had that raid scenario. I've been, hoping that they'll do something like that in Hearthstone, where they'll actually have a cooperative type setting in Hearthstone, or eventually get Emperor play modes, or two-headed ogre play modes and such. That is common in other TCGs now.
Yeah, they could do so much cool stuff with that. But I think the Naxxramas and at least single-player PvE is a good step in that direction. I actually didn't play all that much Diablo this week either. I wasn't able to beat my tier record on the PTR. I'm still at 20, and I'm a little saddened because my whole build on the PTR has been based on Depth Diggers, which are really buff right now, and they're getting nerfed, or they just got nerfed in the patch that went out today. So they don't apply to witch doctors and wizards anymore.
Yep. Sadly.
And so sad. I mean, I think it was needed. I was pretty sure they'd have to do something to depth diggers because pretty much all the wizards on the PTR were just using primary skill based builds and getting rid of all their
Mhm.
secondary skills.
So it's your predictions last week have kind of come to fruition now.
Yeah, it seemed a little obvious. They've done some cool stuff with Magic Missile too to combat the fire build with Magic Missile and Mirror Ball, and but we'll get into that later. I think they made some cool changes there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I might start up a new class on the PTR. I'm still not sure if I'm going with my Wizard once Ladders comes out, so I might play around with Witch Doctor, maybe even Barbarian, because as you guys know, me and Nineball split the classes that we're supposed to talk on, and I have Barbarian and know nothing about Barbarian, so I feel like I should at least play some to so I can talk a little bit on it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
might help just a little bit, just a little bit.
yeah. I'm not great with melee characters, but
Yeah.
I got it in there.
Uh, And that's the whole reason why I'm like leveling the Crusader is because I've always had that temptation to go through and switch back from the Demon Hunter to the Crusader, and so just messing around. I want to get it leveled up on live, so that way I just copy it over to the PTR, so I keep some of my progress. Because it doesn't make sense to level up a new Crusader from 0 to 70 and then lose it, completely. Although I guess I do that all the time in hardcore, anyways. But it just it's slightly different, slightly different.
Yeah, indeed. But I did play. I actually played more StarCraft this week than Diablo. I think.
Blasphemy.
I know. It's just none of my like real life friends play Diablo. As much as I try to get them to play, we all play Blizzard games, but they're just not into Diablo right now. And so I gave in and I did some StarCraft melee, and yeah, I got a little addicted this week. So did some melee and played
Mhm.
some lottery defense. I don't know if anyone's a StarCraft arcade fan out there, but I think lottery defense is like I don't know number 4 or 5 on the arcade right now. Really fun game. Or I don't know how fun it is. I just know it's really addicting. It's very you won't be able to stop playing it.
Mhm.
I didn't have much of a chance to like really analyze if I was having fun or not, but I couldn't stop playing.
I didn't know if I was having fun or not, but I played for 8 hours straight.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
that,
I realized from playing Cookie Clicker that a game can be addicting without being fun.
that's a name I have not heard in quite a long time.
Yes, stay away. I'm clean for like 3 months now.
That's actually kind of the opposite problem that I had. Is when Heart of the Swarm came out, everyone just kept playing World of Warcraft and Diablo, and I had trouble finding anybody to play StarCraft with me, and so I kind of dropped out of it eventually because I suck. I'm not going to say I'm good or anything, but I just enjoyed it so much. Whether it's just laddering or playing mono battles or something like that. I just loved RTS games, which is slightly. I played it again like I want to say like 3 weeks ago because just one of my friends just randomly messaged me and it's like, "Hey, want to do fours?"
Nice.
Yes, you know. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fun, especially with the matchmaking system. If you suck, you'll just get matched with other people who suck anyway. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's always fun. And then yeah, actually, the thing I did more than anything this week was play or was work on my StarCraft arcade map that I've been doing, and so I'm excited to be putting some progress on there, and hopefully I'll have something to show you guys in I don't know a month or so. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that will be fun actually getting it out there.
Yeah, it still isn't that fun to play, but I can see it being fun
It's there.
someday. Yeah,
It's on the cuff.
I took off like a huge project for my first game and realized it was a mistake. That was like a year ago. Still working on it, even though I've redone the whole thing like 3 times now. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. So that's where I've been putting most of my time. And then just getting ready to go to Texas because tomorrow me and wife Con leave for Texas for the weekend. There's some big barbecue festival. We're seeing her brother, and yeah, I guess just drink and eat and barbecue feed because that's what you do in Texas.
But what can go wrong with that?
Yeah, alcohol and food sounds like a good time to me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I cannot really ask for much more in life than those things. Besides, of course, Diablo,
No, there you go. Alcohol,
obviously.
food, and Diablo,
What
and you're
what
set.
more? Yeah, what more could you have, or include, to make a perfect evening?
Yeah. Yeah, we have Noxon in chat here from Texas as well. I'm sure a lot of you are from Texas. It is a pretty big state. So I'll sure get to hang out with all of you guys. We'll just meet up at Starbucks in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're at
Hey,
Texas, I'll be at Starbucks on Friday. Go to
there you go.
Starbucks and we'll have a meetup.
Mm-hmm.
First official meetup right there. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about this week because we got another sexy patch.
That we did. That we did.
Not a real patch, I guess I should put out the disclaimer there. A public test realm patch.
Yeah, a patch for the patch.
Yes, yes. This patch is
Pa-
gonna be full of patches by the time it comes out.
Patchception.
Yes. Dang it! I wish we had the Inception button. That would have been the perfect reference for it. Yeah. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the PTR, they are currently working on the first content patch of Diablo. I'm going to say the first content patch since we never got 1.1. This is 2.1. It's all the features they didn't get into the expansion, and everyone's testing it on a separate server while the devs work on it. And they have made their first set of changes on that test server. And yeah, there's a good amount of them. So I think we'll just blast through those. Should we just start at the top of the
No.
notes?
Start at the top and we can work our way down.
And if you guys want reference, these are posted on battle.net/D3. It's like the top article right now.
Mm-hmm. In Diablo.blizzpro.com.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Yes, they're not. They're not. Don't go to Battle.net. They're on Diablo.blizzpro.com. That's where the good version of the patch notes are.
Of course.
Yeah.
But let's see. I guess like one of the first things is that the Greater Rift difficulty curve has been adjusted. I've not seen anything yet on whether that means. I imagine that means that they've dropped it, and so they made it a bit smoother transition as you get into the later difficulties.
I hope that it means that the later difficulties are harder
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if you guys know the streamer Invis. He just posted a YouTube video of himself soloing a tier 100 rift,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I feel like the idea of the greater rifts is that it's an endless dungeon. So unless they plan on adding more tiers, which I'd be fine with, I think they need to make it harder. Like I don't think people should be beating the top tier like ever if we're gonna
Yeah,
call it an endless dungeon.
it's. I guess it's one of those things that how, and I guess it also comes into like how you describe difficulty, and that's been a big conversation that Wyatt Chang has been having, on Twitter and on the forums about what more can be done besides just upping the monster damage and monster HP. Um, and
Yeah.
as because it's really all that it is. And I can't help but think there's this one game that I've mentioned a little bit before, Dragon's Crown, which they had kind of something similar. They had an endless dungeon, which literally had like 10,000 levels in it, but the levels themselves were predetermined, so it had a certain level of difficulty associated with it based on the monsters that spawned inside of it, not just the damage and HP scaling that went as you went further down. And the way that loot system worked in that game, you didn't have preset legendaries, so that there is kind of a upper limit to what your damage and defensive capabilities can be, because your affixes just don't go any higher. In that game, every tier that you went down, the items just got slightly and slightly better that you could find. So even though it went down, 10,000 levels, the gear scaled with it. So you got better and better gear. But they addressed the difficulty, in ways other than HP and damage scaling, which I don't know if, since they're still keeping it random and they're not trying to normalize it in any way, it's difficult to try and do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And sorry, before addressing that, I just wanted to point out because Mikey made a good point that the big reason why Invis and other monks have been able to get so far in the greater rifts is because of Exploding Palm and its combination
Mm-hmm.
with Reinhardt and other legendaries that make it so you can just do crazy damage. The furnace is also causing issues, but yeah, we'll get to that as well. I think you made a good point, and there was a thread on BattleNet about more ways to increase the difficulty other than increasing monster health and damage. And I looked through a lot of the suggestions that players had. They were talking about just, oh, increase the mob density, but also increase the amount of numbers you have, or mobs you need to kill. Make it so elite enemies have 5 affixes instead. Make it so elite affixes just randomly spawn throughout the dungeon. Which are all interesting ideas, but none of them are. They're all systematic, right? They're all going to be procedurally generated.
Hmm.
No one's actually going through and designing each difficulty, and so really, I think that's the issue. I think unless we have someone who's actually taking a look at each difficulty and really tuning it so it both feels good and is harder than the previous difficulty, then it's gonna feel kind of cheap.
I agree. I definitely agree that there's without actually taking that little finesse and adding a little bit more to it, then there's not a lot of room for you to implement or to scale or to grow with. They actually is going to require a little bit more fine tuning. Whether that will make its way in and patch 2.1, or maybe this will be a 2.1.1 or patch 2.2 season 2 type thing where they go back in and they learn what works and what doesn't work and say, okay, now we're going to go through and do it, and we're going to better kind of like fine tune and handcraft the difficulty for the higher levels.
Yeah, it's one of those you can't have your cake and eat it too situations where the more randomness you have, the less I don't know, good design you have. I mean, we saw
Hmm.
that like in Reaper of Souls, they took out a lot of the randomness so they could bring in better design. They couldn't do
Hmm.
the item overhaul without significantly reducing the amount of randomness in items.
Yep.
And I think it's the same way with the greater rifts. If they want rifts that feel better, we have to be willing to sacrifice some of this randomness that we all love so much.
Yeah, I guess though the counterpoint to that and why they haven't done it so far, I guess, would just be boredom. Because if you're going to be going in the greater rifts as focus, and you're just doing the same thing over and over, fighting those as you get to well, I've gotten to tier 50, and then now tier 60, and now I want to try and get to tier 70, but I have to go through that same 40 tiers again and again and again that I've done so many times, the same monsters, the same layout, and such that it kind of gets. I guess that would get repetitive quicker.
Yeah. I think the real issue, or the one thing that players seem to have in common, is that they're just getting bored of doing the same thing over and over again, back to back.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't. What if, like, just off the top of my head here, every 10 rift levels you had to do some kind of special event that was different from the normal greater rifts, and if you didn't complete it, then that was as far as you got. But every, it could be every 10, every 15, whatever, some kind of, different game mode. Whether it was, just stay alive while things are attacking you for X amount of seconds, or
Hmm.
kill these 2 or 3 bosses at once, or
Something like a greater chest.
yeah, like the cursed chests. Yeah, anything to like just change it up. I think although we've gotten the greater rifts, which fills a big hole that we needed filled in Diablo, of having a way to measure our character, having some kind
Hmm.
of real end game, we're still missing the multiple different ways to play. And I think that's what players are mostly calling out for, is just more new game modes that aren't running from point A to point B and killing everything as fast as you can.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's still kind of going to be, whether you want to run greater rifts or regular rifts, it's more or less the same thing. That you do get special rewards if they add in, the little things like the your idea of adding in the events, interspersed in between the levels, or even just making that something in and of itself, kind of like mini Uber events that you can go through and unlock, and they have maybe a targeted legendary that you have a chance of going through and getting, or that giving a different type of legendary gem that you could find in them. That'd be interesting, or because they could easily do um, like a rift boss level, like every 10 levels, so you can't skip past like the 10th level, and it's different bosses. It's always like some sort of boss. There's something I've seen, kind of thrown out there here and there every couple of months, how cool it would be for them to add in some of the old bosses from Diablo, like Duriel or Andariel, from Diablo 2. And that'd be something that you could do, and you actually have a rift boss, which is a retooled mechanic from an earlier game. You actually fight one of those bosses or one of those big mobs, and see how that plays out.
Yeah, that could be really cool. I mean, of course, I guess that's going to take dev time. You're going to need some people on the art team making up models and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm. That.
yeah, I get the idea that the dev team wants to move in that direction of new game modes. I think that's probably going to be the solution to PvP. Although I
Mm-hmm.
know probably at least half the players are hoping for like traditional PvP. I think it looks like they're leaning towards just filling that void by more game modes that are I don't know, congruent with the feel of Diablo.
Yeah. Then I remember there was one old suggestion, that almost made its way into WoW, is just making it a MOBA mode. You actually have
Yeah.
you have your lanes, and you have the minions and creep spawning. You have to go through and take out the towers, so that way you could play your little MOBA in Diablo 3.
Yeah, MOBAs are a great way to make you feel super powerful and also do PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that was the first point of the patch notes. So now we'll move on.
30 minutes later.
Yeah, sometimes we ramble. Let's see, we got some items that we're reading. I already talked about my depth diggers. Very sad about this. Depth diggers in the PTR increase your primary skill damage by 80 to 100%, but they no longer affect Witch Doctor and Wizard's signature spells. So, does that mean they apply to the other four classes still? Or I'm not sure if what classes can benefit from depth diggers.
But it looks like it. I guess because it was only the Witch Doctor and the Wizard that didn't actually like base be a generator. Everyone else is all of their skills, their base skills generate resources.
Yeah. Yeah, so RVP Wizard and Depth Diggers will go back to not having any pants to go for. Although I guess Firebird set is getting a big upgrade, and so maybe Wizards will have some options there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, do you want to take this next one?
Yeah, the next one, the Madstone. The change that they placed was the exploding palm applied by this item will now use the skill rune you're currently using. Which I'm not sure, because this one took me a little bit by surprise, because Madstone I don't remember seeing mentioned in the last set of patch notes about having a new affix for it. Because maybe that was one that I just missed in general, or one that kind of snuck its way in.
Yeah, maybe. Is there anyone in chat who has found a Madstone on the PTR and knows what they look like? We didn't have a good frame of reference, but apparently there was something OP about the combination of Exploding Palm and Madstone.
I think it was just applying exploding palm, but if you were using the skill, it would use the rune that you had selected from what they're changing it to now. Well, I guess while we wait for some sort of confirmation in chat on that one, I'll take the next one, the Ramaladi's
Yeah.
Gift. It's a bug fix that players will now be prompted with confirmation dialog before using, but it is to my understanding that wasn't in the patch until now. I don't know if it's actually being added in yet.
Yeah, so this is the item that adds a socket to your weapon. Yeah, as far as I know, it's not in there. Also, another funny thing on the patch notes here, Ramalani's gift is written like twice within 3 lines, and it's misspelled one of the 2 times, which is of course a carryover from the original patch notes, but something
Mm-hmm.
Nineball realized and they still haven't noticed yet, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or maybe it really is Ramaladni's gift, and the other one's misspelled.
No, it definitely is Rama Ladney, Landy,
Landy's not
whatever.
Ladney.
It's ND, not DN, I believe. I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Let's go with that.
Yeah, they made some new UI changes, so it's more obvious when you're inside a greater rift. I guess some players were getting confused on whether or not they were doing a greater rift or not,
Hmm.
or if other players were, I guess. Some other bug fixes. Oh, the life on hit change. I think this is actually a pretty good change, but I'm interested to hear everyone's opinion on it. I'll take this one if you don't mind.
Sure.
Life on hit originally, in the past until now, has been triggered by proc coefficients. So every spell has a different proc coefficient. It's basically the percentage of the time that that spell does damage that it will actually trigger things that land on hit. So spells that attack really fast, some spells like Energy Twister might tick like 60 times a second, will have a really low proc coefficient, like 10% or less, where skills that just proc like once per attack would usually have a proc coefficient of 1 or so, maybe a little bit less. But the thing is, you never get the math just right so that all skills are proccing the same amount of life on hit and all this other stuff. And so they simplified it. And although this was, again, another lazy change, I'm for it. Now, life on hit is no longer affected by proc coefficients. You can just get one batch of your life on hit for every attack you do. So the first time a single attack hits an enemy, you'll get all of your life on hit. All the attacks after that are negated. So basically, all spells will be equally as good when pertaining to life on hit.
Yeah, I know that was one thing that in the early days of the monk was one of those ones that kind of drove a lot of people towards Fists of Thunder. And what changed people from using life on hit to life steal is back in the day. Life on hit was better, and everyone was saying, "Oh, life steal is useless. No one will ever use it." Because there was just the proc coefficient on Thunderclap that you actually benefited from 150% of your life on hit. Whereas most of your other ones, you were only doing like 40% or 50% of your life on hit. So if you're fighting just a single mob or only a few mobs, it was crap. But this will at least now make it nice across the board. For certain skills, when fighting a huge group of enemies, this will be kind of a slight nerf because you're not going to be getting as much life return because it will only proc once, no matter how many enemies are being hit by the skill. But now I would hope that this means that it will proc for some skills that might not have procced, like maybe the little tornadoes from Sweeping Wind Cyclone, or some other skills that have, that didn't have any proc coefficient on it at all.
Yeah. But yeah, this will allow them to balance life on hit a lot easier as well, since they're not having
Mm-hmm.
to balance both towards large group pulls and single target fights. So yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if they had to buff life on hit as a result.
Oh,
But
definitely. This change makes me think that they're obviously looking at it and they're just throwing it out there, getting a feel for it, and knowing whether they're going to have to buff the numbers even more because they obviously had just buffed life on hit in the first round of changes for the PTR because of the changes that they're making to health globes. But we'll see if they have to compensate any more for the just kind of the reduced healing you're going to get from mobs.
yeah, I agree. We'll see what changes come next. Next on the patch list, we have the class changes, and I'll start off with the barbarian here. On Bash, they got rid of Clobber, and they replaced it with Frostbite. Each hit freezes the enemy for 1.5 seconds. Enemies can only be frozen once every 5 seconds, a lot like Wizard's magic missile frost version. It deals cold damage, of course. And then the skill rune Onslaught has been redesigned. The enemy hit has a 10% increased chance to be critically hit for 3 seconds, and the damage type is changed from physical to lightning. So this is part of their ongoing process, changing Barb's physical damage into other types, such as cold and lightning. Just a few other changes. Cleave, skill rune Broad Sweep now hits all enemies around you. And I didn't do my homework and look up what that actual change is. But
I think broad sweep was just it increased the um, it originally was just an increase in damage, and I want to say the
here we go. Okay, so the original Broad Sweep increased damage to 210% weapon damage as lightning. Okay, yeah. You are correct. Just a damage increase, but now it hits all enemies around you. That's a pretty cool change.
Hmm.
Be interesting to see if builds come out of that. Unfortunately, you can't. Well, you could still get a lot of procs from that. Of course, you wouldn't get as many life on hit procs because of that change. But the rest, all other procs in the game are going to still work through proc coefficients. And then Furious Charge got some big changes. Got a little overhaul here. Furious Charge should now more reliably move around obstacles. Maximum charge distance went from 35 to 60. The radius of the final cone went from 15 to 20. Travel speed has been significantly increased. The ending animation time has been significantly reduced and now scaled down with your attack speed. And it no longer alternates between using main hand and offhand weapons. Um, so I think Furious Charge just felt a little too clunky for a lot of players, and they smoothed it out here, made it a little bit easier to use.
Well, that was one of the big changes, at least for monks. With Dashing Strike going from classic to Reaper of Souls, is they just changed a lot of those just little functionality changes that they made for that made a world of difference.
Yeah. Yeah, Wizard Teleport had some similar changes, although not as well received by the community. Um, yeah, and the Skill Rune Bull Rush has been renamed Cold Rush. It was already changed to Cold in the last build, but they just changed the name. Oh, and then Whirlwind also had a pretty big change. Weapon damage went from 275 to 340. They significantly increased the proc coefficient. Maybe the life on hit was holding them back from increasing the proc coefficient earlier.
Hmm.
They changed Dust Devil's weapon damage from 80 to 120. The tornadoes will now travel approximately the same direction you are traveling and increase the duration and movement speed of the tornadoes. On the Hurricane Rune, they doubled the frequency at which enemies are pulled in. That's pretty awesome because that skill rune already seemed really cool to me and all the barbs I've seen using it. But that can make a really good support build if you're pulling them in even twice as much. And
Yeah.
Volcanic Eruption weapon damage is increased from 325 to 400. So overall, pretty big buff there for Whirlwind.
Yeah, hopefully, because there's a lot of people that actually enjoyed their whirlwind barbs, and then it was made useless in, Torment 6. It just wasn't that efficient for farming compared to the other ones. They're all kind of, you're forced to go through and play like the loot socks, leap, quake, combo build. And we'll see if this minor increase in damage and the buffing of the proc coefficient is enough to help them out in the higher difficulties.
Yeah.
Um, Going on from there were no changes for the Crusader again in this patch. Sorry,
You got your changes.
you got your fun. Go have your cake. Um, let's see. Moving on to the Demon Hunter, we have the Maelstrom rune. They no longer shoots out tendrils. Or I should say, the Maelstrom. Yeah, the Maelstrom rune no longer shoots out tendrils that lash at nearby enemies. It will now shoot rockets. So it changes it from a grenade skill into a rocket skill, which that also is makes it so that way that skill now has two rockets, both shooting star in Maelstrom. So, but its difference is instead of being physical, it's cold type damage. So it gives you a little bit that you can play with there if you want to play a cold rocket.
Do you think
Um,
they wanted to encourage people to use this in conjunction with the Sentry that shoots out rockets and use the rocket passive?
it's one of the things that they've done, for a lot of the skills in the Demon Hunter is making the rockets more appealing. And any of the skills that actually did shoot or use the rocket mechanic. And so it looks like they want to try and buff that a little bit more and make it competitive. So you just have a different type of playstyle that you can use. So
Hmm.
I don't know if it's really enough to be able to compete with just a regular loaded for bear on cluster arrow. And obviously you have, for T6 farming, you've got the 6-piece Marauder set, which kind of kicks ass on everything, but that's not as great for greater rifts because your killing speed, even though you can take on Torment 6 with that, your killing speed isn't that great, so it doesn't work that well in greater rifts. And so it'd be interesting seeing what they might come up with for some of the builds for soloing the high level rifts.
Yeah, and for anyone
Uh,
who doesn't know, they in the last PTR patch doubled the damage of that skill rune as well.
mhm.
Maelstrom or Strom on cluster arrows. So yeah, that
Yep.
hopefully that makes for some cool rocket builds.
Yeah, and moving on, they buffed Fan of Knives again. So you saw, from 450% to 620% now. They changed a couple of the skill runes around again, just kind of juggling some of the elemental types. So you now have bladed armor, which was the one that kind of was it held inside of you, and when you were attacked, it then shot out. It was changed from physical to cold. Fan of Daggers, they had the stun duration increased. It changed, the damage type was changed from lightning to fire, and they got rid of the knockback that it did, which is a little bit strange because almost anything that involves stuns normally is lightning. It's kind of like a lightning mechanic. So it's weird that
Yeah.
they changed that. They also changed the knives expert rune from physical to fire, and then the pinpoint accuracy they changed that one from physical to lightning, and they further upped the damage on that one from the 1200 to 1600%. Which that one is it the proc on that one is not the actual damage that's going to be the 1600%, but every once in a while it's going to throw an additional dagger at an extremely long range that does that damage for it. So it's little changes that they're making there. Um, you're going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say it'd be cool to see some Fan of Knives Demon Hunters coming out of this.
Yeah, there was actually a very popular build, in the original beta it was based on the one-handed crossbow that made strafe free, and you could use strafe plus the Fan of Knives rune that changed it instead of a cooldown to just a hatred spender, and you could just run around with um, the Fan of Knives that shot knives, or not the Fan of Knives that shot knives, but you could use the Fan of Knives that was a hatred spender, as well as the strafe that shot knives with the increased critical damage, along with the bladed belt for pretty interesting little devastating combo for like tier 1 or torment 1, torment 2 type levels. But it'd be cool if they brought that back. That'd be a lot of fun. With Impale, Fan of Knives, or what you call it, the skill I just mentioned, strafe. There we go. Strafe.
Yeah, I
That's what I'm
haven't
talking
seen many Strafe Demon Hunters for a while.
about. Yep. Going on from there, they also multi-shot the burst fire rune. That one was changed from poison to cold, and they increased the explosion radius up to 15 yards. So it does that initial burst of damage 15 yards in front of you instead of just 12. And they again removed yet another poison skill from the demon hunters. I find that interesting that we were one of the few classes, obviously the witch doctor had a bunch of poison skills, but we were one of the only other ones that could use any poison type skills. Now they're removing all of them. It's like, why? It was such a fun type of a fix.
I know how you
Uh,
feel. Us wizards also got our poison skills. Well, we got all of our poison skills
yeah,
removed.
you're two, Venom and
Yes,
Venom Hydra.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, our two
Yep.
very coveted poison
No,
skills.
ours. Go away. Go away. Leave us alone. It's ours. We're assassins. We use poison.
Yeah.
You shoot fire. Whatever. Another interesting change that they made to Sentry is they completely changed Aid Station. It's now gone, so it's no longer Aid Station. It's now Polar Station. Instead of giving a bubble that heals everyone within it, it now chills enemies within that 16-yard bubble and reduces their movement speed by 60%, and then changes the damage of the turret to cold. So it's adding yet another elemental type to the Sentry build to try and give a little bit more variance that you can go through and play with it. And it's just another source of CC or crowd control. You have these just stationary fixed points that you can set up that have a 60% slow on them, which is nice if you get it with Call a Week. So if you drop a turret on top of yourself and start attacking them, it's just a flat 20% damage increase if you're using Call a Week without having to do any other skills to slow the enemies.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
little interesting things that you can play around with in that. Strafe received another buff. It had its damage increased yet again because I guess they feel that it wasn't buffed enough, which is nice when we were just talking about it. It's a very fun skill, and I would like to be able to see that. They went and buffed Whirlwind, and Whirlwind Barb's a huge thing. I'd love to see Whirlwind Demon Hunters. Kind of a little bit of a throwback to Whirlwind Assassins of yesteryear, which were tons of fun in PvP and were so-so in PvE back in D2. And then they just, Drifting Shadow, again, they're changing some of the elemental types, physical to lightning, and then Rocket Storm is another interesting one. It's from fire to cold. So it's, they changed another one of the rocket skills from fire to cold, giving a little bit more elemental variance there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep. And then I guess it's me again because the monk is next.
You're on a roll.
So yeah, going there, they did some buffs to dashing strike. The damage has been upped on some of the runes. So barrage, the weapon skill damage got increased. Flying sidekick got gutted and has now been replaced with radiance. So what the flying side kick is that you just had a chance to stun the enemy as you flew through them. Now what it does is it is increases your attack speed by 15% for 3 seconds after using it, and they changed the damage to fire. Quicksilver, again, is Quicksilver and Way of the Falling Star, just changing it from physical to lightning and physical to holy, respectively. Again, giving you more options for elemental types. The big one, and I'm sure there's already been people that have been, going through and complaining about this, is Exploding Palm. They have nerfed it.
Monks finally had one way to do a lot of damage, and
Yeah,
Blizzard takes it away.
this is pretty much a complete nail in the coffin for the ZDPS. You can no longer, that build is gone, dead. This one change has completely removed the effectiveness of that build. It can still pseudo be effective if you were using like a furnace or the Reinhardt submission combo, but now is just Exploding Palm. When it explodes, does a flat weapon percentage damage, no longer scaling off of the monster's HP, which obviously is going to hit monks kind of hard when they were already reeling from just not being that effective at the higher difficulties and relying completely upon exploding palm. And now that that's been taken away from them, you kind of actually have to branch out from there. But yeah, it's interesting. But I almost want to say that it's needed. It was just an overpowered skill that allowed the ZDPS build. So you could do 10,000 damage and yet still clear T6.
Yeah, I mean, I think the crushing blow example, Furnace and Reinhardt, they're all the same issue. It's Blizzard really wants to try to introduce this idea of items doing damage based on an enemy's health, and it's just way too hard to balance. Because of course, anytime you're doing damage based on how much health an enemy has, the skill is going to get better and better as the enemy's health pool is larger. So, sorry, just quick backup because I had a personal friend who watches the show and never knows what we're talking about.
Mm.
So for the noobs out there, crushing blow would have a chance. Sorry, backing up even more. Crushing blow was a stat that they were trying to introduce in Reaper of Souls. It was also in D2, but it just didn't work out for balance reasons. It has a chance on hit to deal a percentage of the enemy's remaining health, which is really fun to see a big chunk get taken out of an enemy who has a lot of health. But of course, it makes for all kinds of problems where you have characters that do very little damage, but they have a high chance to do a percentage of the enemy's health. And on higher torments, they can have a lot of defense and still do a ton of damage. The Furnace on PTR right now works the same way. It has a chance to do a percentage of the enemy's health. That's how Exploding Palm is working. And then Reinhardt is a similar situation where it has a chance to just automatically kill smaller enemies who are already frozen. But all of them, the same idea. They're doing damage based on the enemy's health.
Yeah, it makes it so that way you don't actually none of those items care about what your actual damage is. So it completely negates an integral part of your character.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's really fun, and a lot of players are mad right now because they're getting rid of it. But I can't see a world where they could balance this.
The only way to really balance it without removing it is to make that type of stat available to everyone. And
Which,
then but then what are you left with?
yeah,
Mobs with
then
16 billion HP on Torment 1, just so that way they provide, somewhat of a challenge. And or the only other thing that I can think of is obviously you still, whatever you do, you have to make the mob's HP ginormous, because you have to balance it around the fact that, well, people will have Crushing Blow, and make it at some point Crushing Blow doesn't work, like 15% HP, it doesn't work anymore. And so you still actually have to have, regular damage on your weapons. You have to have a certain amount of damage on your character sheet in order to finish them off, type thing. So I don't know.
yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. If they just actually, instead of just giving them huge health pools, what if Crushing Blow only worked above like 40% health?
Yeah, that'd also be an interesting change. Just something that it has a cutoff where it helps you get to a point, but then you still actually need the a good character to finish off the mob.
Yeah, yeah. And then you might find some like interesting groups where one person's really Crushing Blow focused and then the rest of the group or other members finish off mobs.
You have the puller, type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but as it stands right now, it's either we get rid of it completely or people are just going to feel forced into it. That's going to be the only way to run the higher tiered rifts and difficulties.
And Danny Ray in chat is mentioning something that I had actually tweeted to Wyatt Chang when he was looking for feedback on, the furnace and exploding palm. How it, like, the Crushing Blow and that type of mechanics should always work on the base HP of the mob, but
Mm.
not factor in the total HP based on difficulty or like the number of players. That's how um, Corpse Explosion worked in Diablo 2, or Death Sentry worked in Diablo 2. That when you're playing solo, it's great, overpowered, amazing, but as soon as you added in a second player, its effectiveness dropped by 50%. And by the time that you're up to 8 players, it was incredibly weak, because it only stayed on the base HP of the monster and didn't scale up when you had the 8 players, and the monster's HP had increased by like 500 or 600%.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, but it's still you still get to the point where if you balance it so it's at least usable on the higher difficulties, it's going to be really strong on the lower difficulties, even if your character sucks, other than having a bunch of Crushing Blow.
Hmm.
I mean, I see what you're saying. It's a good point, Danny Ray. And I think it probably would be a better situation, but it still feels a little wonky to me. And sorry, quick question from chat. Sinharta wanted to know if they touched the Bolkathos ring, and I have no idea about that. If anyone else in chat does, I haven't heard of any changes to Bolkathos.
Yep, don't know. But moving on from there, yeah. So just most of the Exploding Pond runes, of course, they all had the reworking to where the actual explosion itself now just does weapon damage, um, instead of the actual health damage. Some of them are interesting. I think it will make some like Essence Burn a little bit more appealing, because Essence Burn, didn't have that HP explosion. It just, when it exploded, it did a certain amount of weapon damage and then put a dot on everyone. So now it puts a really big dot on everybody. And it now does like 3,200% weapon damage if the enemy died from the explosion. So it will do more, but it can no longer chain multiple times. So you no longer have this infinite chain. Um, and then Impending Doom, that one is the explosion now. It no longer does the weapon damage as the dot. It will only do damage if the target is killed, but it does 6,000% weapon damage as soon as they die. So they kind of load it all into the dot itself, or they load all the damage into the back end. So it's not something that you just go and throw up on the enemy and then start beating on them. You only put it up once they're low on HP, and then maybe put it up on a couple of them to get the chain explosion. So that looks interesting.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
guess.
Hopefully this doesn't crush Monk's spirits.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to go through and look and see, because obviously the ZTPS builds were still what people were using, because they weren't happy with the damage increases that they had gotten in the patch, and ZTPS had still was outperforming anything else. Uh, Maybe we'll see some more experimentation now with that exploding palm change. Not saying that it's obviously it's a huge nerf, but maybe it might be a good thing for monks if obviously if they can get their damage up to a competitive level with the other classes, so that way they can rely on something other than ZDPS. So that will be the Chevette on that one. But going on, just some other things. Mystic Ally, it had its weapon damage. The secondary attacks that the different allies did, they all had their damage increased. Seven-sided strike, the several-sided strike rune was removed and renamed to Incinerate, and now puts a dot on them for 600% weapon damage over 3 seconds for each one of the enemies hit. And then Tempest Rush also got another buff. They increase the weapon damage. They remove the initial cost, and they also greatly increased the resource cost per second for the channeling. So it looks like you're no longer able to do an infinite Tempest Rush build, which is kind of crappy because I always like that. It's like one of those classic builds for the monks, but now it's with a spirit cost of 30 per second. That seems to be that's going to be nigh impossible. I'm sure that someone out there is going to make a build that will be able to work it, but
I
yeah,
kind of like
now
this change though. I think because in the past Tempest Rush has only been useful for Tempest Rush builds, right? Like you
yeah,
either are only Tempest Rush or you don't use it at all. And the idea of getting rid of the initial resource cost means you could just use it for 1 second if you want to. You don't feel like you're penalized for letting go too early. I don't know. Maybe it's not buffed enough yet, considering how expensive it is. But it'd be cool if it
yeah,
filled a new role.
yeah, because it's 390% weapon damage for 30 spirit. That's not that great when compared with the other ones. Obviously, it has the movement component tied to it, but I think that I don't know. I think most people would probably still prefer Dashing Strike over it because it's cheaper. It's limited by its cooldown, but it does more damage, and you can get instant teleportation out of it.
Yeah.
We'll see what they come up with. And then from there, as they just change a couple passives, Resolve now has its duration increased from 2.5 to 4 seconds, and actually puts an animation on the enemy to signify that they're affected by it. Which Resolve reduced enemy damage by 25% when you did damage to them. And then they also Seize the Initiative has now been reworked. So what Seize the Initiative used to do is give you 50%, or sorry, 30% of your dexterity as armor. Now what it is, damage dealt to enemies above 80% life will now increase your attack speed by 15% for 4 seconds. So it's like one of those ones when you run in and attack first hit an enemy that's at full health, you get a little bit of attack speed to try and burst you the rest of the way down.
Do you think it's a coincidence that that new passive fits the name Seize the Initiative so well, or do you think they really like designed the skill around the name to have to avoid changing the name?
That's kind of what it sounds like. I don't know. That'll be a question for Don Vu. He might
Yeah.
actually answer. He's somewhat active on Twitter sometimes. He goes
Oh,
back and
yeah.
forth.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. If you seize the initiative, you'll gain some attack speed.
Yeah.
Well, next up we have the Witch Doctor. Not a ton of changes, but Acid Cloud can now be used as fire if you use Corpse Bomb, or cold if you use Slow Burn. Not just poison there. Make for some interesting builds. Locust Swarm, I guess I didn't realize this, but if you cast it out of range before, it would just cast it within your range, and now you'll actually walk close enough so you can cast it where you actually clicked.
That was the most annoying thing with Locust Swarm because you would just
Hmm.
sit there and you would cast it, and they might be just 5 yards outside of range, and you just would just fade away and do nothing.
Yeah,
Unless,
I haven't used Locust Swarm that much in my Witch Doctor.
mhm.
Well, there you go. All the other Witch Doctors suffering from same predicament. Poison Dart, similar to Acid Cloud, can now be used as cold with the Numbing Dart rune or physical with the Spined Dart rune. A lot more elemental variation. And that was it for Witch Doctors. Wizards got some interesting changes, though. Arcane Orb got a big buff, especially to Obliteration. So overall, Arcane Orb's damage was buffed a little bit, as well as Arcane Orbit, but Obliteration went from 509 to 700% weapon damage. Um, so we might actually see some Arcane Orb builds for once. Before this, I don't think I'd seen any of that. And the channeling skills. If you guys missed the last set of patch notes, the initial PTR changed channeling skills for wizards so that they would cost a lot of resource up front, have a heavy initial cost. And this was to discourage players from just running, tapping it, killing enemies, running, tapping it, and just getting through low difficulties. They wanted channeling skills to get better the longer you stood still. And they changed their mind about how they did it, and they're doing the same thing in a different way. Basically, now you won't have an initial cost, which I'm sure many wizards will be happy about.
Mm-hmm.
But your damage will start off low, and then it will increase over time. So if you can stand still there, you can actually get a lot of damage. For example, with Arcane Torrent, it only starts with 370% weapon damage, which is significantly less. But every second you get an extra 105% weapon damage, up to a total of 895, which is significantly more than it used to do. And as another example, Death Blossom starts at 1200 and now goes up to 3000%. And same with Disintegrate and Ray of Frost, they now increase the longer you hold them down. Which could be cool because especially Disintegrate and somewhat Arcane Torrent weren't that great for single targets, but now they're actually doing pretty good single target damage as well if you can manage to stand still. But I think basically the channeling spells are supposed to reward you for having the defense or otherwise the ability to stand still without having to run away. And I think this is a good way to do that.
And then what happens if you get knocked back?
Yeah, that's going to be frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why you play with groups, I guess. Let your friends get knocked back instead.
Yeah, because I mean, even just not the knockback ones, but that's gonna make it kind of crappy against every single thing that's like knockback, knockback, fear, arcane beams, frozen orb, or pulsar, thunderstorm at higher difficulties as well. Is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the idea though, is that like the channeling spells are supposed to be bad in that area, because that's the realm of the instacast spells, and the channeling spells are supposed to give you the channeling spells should be the best spells in certain scenarios, but never the best spell in every scenario. Is my thinking at least. And so here, if you have to move a lot, channeling spells are going to suck. If because you're in a group, because you have a lot of defense, because you're running low difficulty, whatever the reason, you're able to stand still longer, then channeling spells should be the best spells.
Yeah.
Explosive Blast got a huge buff, about a 50% damage increase on all the runes. Explosive Blast in the past has really only been used on with Wand of Woe, and maybe they're trying to change that. But yeah, about a 50% damage increase. Ice Armor got a huge damage increase. Frozen Storm now deals 80% weapon damage per second instead of 28. It sucked before 28% weapon damage. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe some people start using Frozen Storm, especially on the lower difficulties. 80% per second could be nice.
I like that because Ice Armor was one of my favorite runes to use in hardcore. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, you can see the potential there. But yeah, I don't think anyone is using Frozen Storm, so hopefully, yeah, that could be interesting. 80% weapon damage automatically to everyone around you could make for, if nothing else, a good build to run your friends through as you're leveling them. But one of the big changes here, Magic Missile Conflagrate. This is the fire rune on Magic Missile, which pierces and applies a stackable dot to the enemy, and it used to, the dot would do 55% weapon damage over 3 seconds, and it would just stack continuously, and every time you cast it, it refreshes all the stacks, and you can get some really crazy numbers from that skill. And so a lot of people who are using Mirror Ball are kind of pushed into this Magic Missile Conflagrate build, and all their skills, all their damage is coming from their primary skill, and not the situation that Blizzard wants you to be in.
Hmm.
And so they changed how it works, and although I'm sure many wizards are going to be upset, I like the change. It now does much more damage per stack. Instead of 55, it does 130%, but it can only stack 3 times. So after 3 hits, you're at max damage. But I think also to incentivize you to use secondary skills and not just rely on your primary skill, all fire damage will refresh the stacks of Magic Missile, which means you can go to a group, hit them 3 times with Magic Missile, and then start hitting them with Meteor or Wave of Force or whatever fire skill you're using, and your Magic Missile ticks will just keep going, which I think could make for some really cool gameplay.
Yeah, that's going to be really nice because now it gives you an interplay for a wizard between your generator, I guess you're not your generator, but your signature spell and then your spenders. Is that, it's you go through and you actually want to use your signature spell for something other than just that time when you have no arcane power. You can go through and you have a new mob pack. If you're at the higher difficulties, and they actually take a couple of attacks to, take down, you hit them a couple times, get your 3 stacks, and then you start blasting them with your actual your other spells, your secondary skills, in order to keep the dot rolling.
Yeah, a little bit of a mini spell rotation worked in there. Could be fun. A little buff to Meteor impact weapon damage from 500 to 610%. Yeah, tiny little buff there. Ray of Frost, same deal with the channeling skills, just does more damage as you hold it down. Storm Armor, Shocking Aspect got a huge buff, and I'm wondering if it's as big as it looks, because I was using this rune already. The Shocking Aspect rune on Storm Armor makes it so um, you will have a chance to electrocute nearby enemies when you crit, basically based on your proc coefficient. And the damage was 51. It got changed to 425, basically multiplied by 8. And if they kept the proc coefficient where it is, this seems super buff. And I'll just keep my Living Lightning build, even without my Depth Diggers, if that's how awesome it is, because that's that's a lot of damage. So I don't know if anyone's tried it yet in chat. Let me know. Maybe they reined in the proc coefficient and didn't tell us, but yeah, big buff to Shocking Aspect.
Most of the people in chat are having problems even logging on to the PTR, so.
Makes sense. Oh, we have Ziggy D here. Good day, Ziggy D. That was my best Australian accent, so that's all you get. I'm sorry.
Good day, mate.
Yeah, there's 9 balls. We do our best. Uh, anyways, that was it for class changes. That was yeah.
Yeah. Jumping into the next one, probably the biggest and the most eagerly awaited of all the patch 2.1 changes, in addition to the greater rifts, is legendary gems. They're finally added in. So now, whenever you kill a Greater Rift Guardian, it has a chance at dropping the gem. And we now know fully how they intend to support the mechanic and how you'll be able to upgrade it going forward. It doesn't seem that it's tied really. It's not hard tied to the difficulty or the level that you get in the Greater Rift itself. Now, whenever your timer runs out, so whether you end up not being able to complete Greater Rift level 1, you get stuck at Greater Rift 37, or you actually make it all the way to Greater Rift 100. But whenever your timer is up and you are completely done, the new vendor, Urshi, will appear and will then offer the ability to try and upgrade your legendary gem to the next rank, of whatever rank it is. And what it is it's not guaranteed. There is a chance for it to succeed. So if you're only on Rift level 1, don't expect them to be able to upgrade your gem. But if you're on Rift level 100, there's actually a chance that it will jump multiple ranks. So if you have a level 1 gym, you might get upgraded to level 5 or level 6 or however many levels. Not sure. Haven't gone on there, haven't seen anyone talking about it yet, so there'll be something to come within the next few days. But it kind of gives you that little chance at a reward no matter how well you do in the rift. It just, the better you do, the greater your chance that you will get, the reward and get your gym upgraded to the next level.
Yeah. Knowing Blizzard, my guess would be that it would favor casual players a little bit more. That, of course, the further you go, the better it's going to be, but that it might not be comparable. That if you're, you know, twice as geared, I personally wouldn't anticipate upgrading your gem twice as fast per rift, because I think
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard likes to kind of throw a bone to the casuals when they can. But also worth mentioning, it won't cost anything to upgrade it. It's completely free. You just give them the gem as long as you've gotten one from a Rift Guardian already, and a free chance at upgrading it. Also, Diablo fans had data mined the patch notes before they went live, and in the actual scripts that they pulled, they're called jewels. Not that that
Mm-hmm.
means that they'll necessarily be called jewels. They're still calling them legendary gems in the patch notes. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that'll be cool. There was a. They also have they data mine the looks of all the legendary gems, and they're they all have like little unique looks to them. One's like a rainbow, another one looks like it's actual like rough cut emerald. There's a bunch of cool things.
Oh yeah, I missed that. That's cool. And we got a little bit more clarification on the actual gems. The gems will have a property listed in blue that will upgrade each time you upgrade the gem. And then there's a secondary power that will be unlocked when it reaches rank 50. So we were kind of speculating on that last week because all the gems have two properties. And that's how it says it works. It did look like some of the gems had two stats that could be upgraded. So we'll have to see if that's the case, but it doesn't look like
Yeah,
it according to the notes.
yeah, and just the fact that it's like the secondary affix unlocks at rank 50, that gives it some idea of how far do they intend the rank up bonuses on this to go. It seems like they're kind of planning for the long haul on them.
Yeah, when they initially announced Greater Rifts, I was under the impression that this was going to be like an optional side thing. If you want to go test your character, go ahead and do it. But it wouldn't necessarily be the best way to farm, and that's totally not the direction they've taken this. It's
Hmm.
very much, if you care about your character at all, you better be focusing on Greater Rifts, at least with the current PTR build. Which I don't know how I feel about that. I guess we'll have to see if they add a lot more game modes. I would hope that we're not pushed into them, but we're rather felt like we had the option of how we wanted to spend our time in Diablo.
Yeah, that I guess this is something that we joked around about some of our earlier episodes. I hope you like rifts because you'll be rifting in your rifts.
Yeah, it's it's very much they just adopted. Okay, there's gonna be an optimal way to play. Let's just embrace it.
Yeah. Um, I guess the only other thing is that you'll never be able to find a duplicate legendary gem.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So,
well, there is a known issue that you can now put legendary gems in items that they're not intended for. Don't get any
yep.
dirty thoughts there. Just gear slots. That's the only place you can put them right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Only rings and amulets.
Well,
Right now they can be socketed into anything.
yeah. So they're supposed to be just rings and amulets. You can put them anywhere, I guess. So hey, have some fun with that on the PTR until they fix it.
Pretty much, pretty much. But I wonder how they're going to handle that. Not being able to receive a duplicate legendary gem. Is it per character or is it per account? Because that means that in order to like, if I want to swap back and forth between my like say my monk and my demon hunter, if there's this one gem that I want to use on both, I have to go and unsocket the gem, put it in my stash, log on to the demon hunter, and then put it back into their ring, and then go back and forth.
That's a really good point. I feel though, like let's say you got a gem and it was up to level 15, and then you switched characters and got the same gem. You're still going to swap out for the level 15 one anyway, right? You're not going to
I
start a
guess
new one over.
I guess that's true. Although I don't know how difficult it would be to code to where if you have the duplicate of that gem, that they're all the same level across the board. But then, that
Yeah.
would also kind of suck if you want this one gem and you got 4 copies of the other one. So it probably is for the best, any way around without making it too complicated on the back end for development time.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could upgrade any gem that you've unlocked on your account without actually having to have it on your character.
Yeah, maybe making a way that you can purchase a gem that you already own from the vendor.
Yeah, at the same rank that you have it at, maybe.
Yeah, or and it allows you to purchase it and then upgrade it to your highest rank for that one.
Yeah, maybe just a small cost or something. That could be cool.
Yeah.
Well, we got some item changes as well. Well, really quick, Mad Monarch Scepter, which is the mace that no one uses that you can get from bounties. That does a poison nova after killing 10 enemies. Will now count assists as well as kills. Pretty sure still no one's gonna use it though.
Yeah, that one just eh, it it's interesting. It's an interesting item. It doesn't it's not come just it might, because I mean 1,000% weapon damage is pretty decent. It's not going to help with elite packs unless you're fighting an illusionist, but yeah, against clearing white mobs, yeah, it's nice. No, but
Yeah.
just not. It's not going to compare to what other items can do.
Yeah. True story.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
From there,
I'll take the barbarian items, I
sure.
suppose. They added some affixes to two-handed mighty weapons, chest armor, and shoulders. They include percent damage to furious charge and percent damage to call the agents. I guess they're trying to encourage people to use furious charge in this patch.
Mm-hmm.
The Might of the Earth set. Earthquakes caused by the Might of the Earth set will once again generate fury through the Earthen Might passive skill. And the Legacy of Raycor, the damage type dealt by Furious Charge will now be based on the element of the skill you're currently using. So you can tailor your build towards the actual element you're using instead of being forced into. I'm not even sure what elemental type it was before.
I think it was just a different. Some of the different skills had different elemental types, but it was the set bonus was kind of like with the old um, Archon set, the Veer set, so that way it unlocked all of the runes. I think that changed it to where it was just doing like just set physical, or
Okay.
like with the Furious Charge was just doing set physical, and then had all of the runes itself applied. So it was like a different version of the skill, and now it will just whatever skill you have equipped, it will do that elemental type of damage instead of changing it.
Yeah. And who wants physical damage anyway?
Yeah, who does? But for the Crusader, the only two changes were to Fate of the Fell and the Jenga board, which the extra procs that they provided for Fires of the Heavens and Blessed Shield, they apparently no longer they did not generate procs. So the 2 extra beams that you got from Fate of the Fell for your Fires of Heaven didn't proc anything, and same thing for the Jenka board. That the additional shield hits wouldn't proc anything either. Now they do. So these 2 items, which are used in 2 of the more popular builds that are out there and everyone uses anyways, now just got better. So you have you have a less of a reason to want to use anything other than that.
All right.
And going on from the Demon Hunter, they have they added in a new crossbow, the Wojani Assaulter. I think Wojahani something.
I think you got it.
Okay, open to interpretation. Insult me later on Twitter. That's fine. It's a new crossbow, and what it does is rapid fire deals 40 to 50% more damage per second, stacking up to 4 times. So this is the rapid fire crossbow, and it adds the functionality kind of what the wizard channeling spells were changed to. When you sit there, it will just increase in damage. Now I wonder if it's going to be like on top of it. Is it going to go from the 600% weapon damage to 650 to 750 to 700 to 750, or is it just going to increase the base damage where you're going to go from like 600 to 900, up from there? I highly doubt that they would do something that extreme, but
Yeah, it either sounds like it's horrible or it's
mhm,
amazing.
yeah,
If it's just weapon damage, then getting 200% weapon damage after 4 seconds, like who cares?
yeah,
But if it's overall damage, then you're doing triple the damage after 4 seconds. But then again, I
yeah.
guess like rapid fire hasn't been that popular, has it?
Not since all the changes. It obviously was very, very popular back in the day, but no longer.
Yeah.
But who knows? Might be able to bring it back, because if it actually does increase the 200% weapon damage, having something that does 1,000% weapon damage might be fun for a channel spell. Might make it actually worth using then.
Yeah, well, it'd be
Uh,
more than that, right? Because it'd be triple after 200
yeah,
percent extra damage.
true. So that would take it up to like 15%, 1,500% weapon damage.
Yeah, that's where my money is, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. And then for monks, the Fist of Az-Tarask.
Yeah, I think
Again,
so.
I get all the fun names. It of course it used to make it so that way your exploding palm on death explosion was increased from 30% of your enemy's health to 75 to 100% of your enemy's health. With the change to exploding palm, obviously it had to change, and so now what it just does is it increases the explosion damage by 75 to 100%, which could be interesting with like that imminent doom. You now have a 12,000% weapon damage explosion
Yeah,
if you're using that weapon. So that could be interesting. See how that stacks together. Looking at the individual class changes on paper, and then at them when you also combine them with the items are two completely different things.
yeah. Well, exploding palm has not left the building yet. Still a lot of potential there.
Hmm.
Well, we didn't get any witch doctor item changes, but the wizard item changes I'm pretty excited about. Firebird's Finery has sucked since its inception,
Hmm.
and they buffed the proc, which made it so that enemies would do 2,000 damage to other enemies over 5 seconds when they died. Now it doesn't matter if they die. It's just when you cast fire damage, it does that amount of fire damage over 3 seconds and continue stacking until the enemy is taking 3,000 weapon damage as fire each second.
It doesn't stop
It
there.
doesn't stop there! No, yeah. So, well, but let me clarify that first. So, if you deal 500% of your weapon damage to the enemy, it takes all that damage, and then it takes another 500% over the next 3 seconds. And if you hit it with another 500%, now you're at 1,000, and it starts over again, and it keeps going. But once it gets to 3,000, permanent. It just takes
Hmm.
3,000 damage every second until they die. Which this sounds like an awesome build because as long as you could find a system where you knew they were at 3,000%, hopefully they have some kind of like visual so you know I've reached 3,000. That's all you do. You just get them to 3,000% and then you leave. Right? Like if you're on like high torments, just stack it a bunch. Once you feel like you're there, go on to the next group. Like especially on greater rifts, you don't have to worry about
Yeah,
getting loot or anything.
I was just about to say, like, this almost seems that this change was designed specifically for greater rifts, because all you need to do is just have some sort of high powered upfront burst that you can get that dot up to 3,000%, and then you just keep running, and everything will follow behind you and die.
Yeah. Now, I think the next job for wizards is to find the combination of skills where you can ensure 3,000% weapon damage as fast as possible. Because, yeah, that's just. I mean, essentially, I guess what you need to do is 9,000% weapon damage because it's doing whatever you do over 3 seconds, and you have to get to 3,000 per second before it's permanent. So you have to do a lot of damage. It's not going to be very useful, or at least not nearly as useful in the lower difficulties, but this might be the new wizard set to go for. And wizards haven't really had that OP set that a lot of classes have had. So yeah, this might make me roll wizard once the ladders start.
Looks fun.
And then the other change was kind of a retro change. Mirror Ball extra magic missile hits will now be able to generate procs. This is how it originally worked, but because people were proccing too much, probably especially life per hit, they removed the ability for the additional magic missiles to generate procs. And now I'm guessing because life on hit doesn't work from proc coefficients, they now can proc again. So if you have any builds that rely heavily on getting procs, Mirror Ball is going to be better for it. It's not going to give you extra life on hit.
Yeah. From there we have we got a huge amount of bug fixes. Most of them can be condensed into saying any legendary item that had a proc that dealt damage um, wasn't benefiting from elemental damage bonuses.
And
That they're changed now.
they never really came out and said that this was a bug either.
Yeah, no, it was something that was left. It was just kind of left out there because there was just the one item. Which one was it? It was either the Thunder God's Vigor or the Thunder Fury, which actually benefited from like the bonus lightning damage, and that was it.
No, it was the community made one that I can't think of right now. Shard of
Oh,
Hate.
Shard of Hatred.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was only the lightning damage on Shard of Hatred got multiplied.
yeah,
And
and
that's actually not on the list. So I'm not sure if that just already was working before they made this bug pass, or if it sounds like all items that do damage should be affected by percent elemental damage, but I guess I'm still not sure if that's the case.
yeah. I think what a lot of the ones that were listed is because most of them did not have a specific damage type listed.
Hmm.
But it just going through and further at least clarifying which ones they're affected by. Like the Maximus is affected by fire, whereas like the Deathwatch Mantle is affected by physical, so on and so forth.
Yeah, good to
Uh,
know. Yeah,
yeah,
that'll definitely make me start using my Thunder Fury again for my lightning build, I think.
yep. One of the other ones is apparently Nemesis Bracers were only spawning fallen champions inside Nephilim Rifts. It's been
Hmm.
changed, so now it should spawn anything and everything. Nice.
Yeah.
And finally, I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't know if it's an actual. I would call this a bug, but they said they fixed an issue that prevented players from purchasing class-specific legendary items for other classes from Kadala. So that one is basically it prevented you, like if you were on your a demon hunter, it prevented you from buying mojos, from her.
Yeah, but yeah, I think a lot of players would prefer that because you can always hop on your other character and buy it there if you want to, right?
Yeah, and it prevents you from accidentally misclicking on it, and then uh, I guess it just won't have that. It won't, obviously it won't be smart loot because it's a non-class item for you. But I guess I don't know. That's like one of those ones where it's like I thought that would just kind of be intentional from the beginning, just to prevent you from wasting your shards on it if you're accidentally clicking the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I definitely preferred it before the fix.
Yeah.
Hmm. Guess that was
Um.
about it. Yeah, a few other
Uh,
small bug fixes.
yeah, just like some bug interface or user interface bugs and some other stuff that they just cleaned up. Things that aren't important, no one cares about.
Yes, indeed, quite true. Well, now that we're already nearly an hour and a half into the show, should we get through our feedback here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and hit it up. Do you want to do the feedback or the items first?
Yeah, let's do the items. And if
All right,
there's any news that you think we should cover, I forgot to check the other stuff, but I guess we got the good
um,
stuff already.
there was some other things like this the past week. Tomorrow, the other big thing is tomorrow they're doing the round 2 of the Theorycraft Thursday live streams.
Yes.
So it is. I forgot the player's name. Oh yeah, it's oft repeated. Is they're going to be going through and doing their build
It's 4
for
p.m.
tomorrow. Yeah, it's
4 p.m.
what is it for?
Pacific. So yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's twitch.tv/Diablo.
Yep, and it is his Witch Doctor build that was focused around the Carnival mask. So his fetishes would shoot poison arrow or the poison dart whenever he casted it. And joining him on that stream will be Thunderclaw, who is he's one of the forum MVPs. He's also one of the moderators over at R Diablo. He's also a huge lore fan like myself. Very cool guy. So that'll be fun. He plays a witch doctor as well, and obviously Nevelistus will be there hosting the stream, and Wyatt Chang will be joining them as the developer to go through and talk. Um, I'm really looking forward to this one because Steven's stream that he did with his Crusader build last month was like awesome, and we got to learn all this new information that had absolutely nothing to do with Crusaders. So what more are we going to learn from Wyatt Chang tomorrow about what they have in store for patch 2.1 in the future?
Yeah, it should be awesome. I'll be just getting to Texas, so I'll have to watch when I get back, or maybe find some time. But yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. From there, there's just was it Grimiku was asking for some feedback on like Demon Hunter survivability and resource management, and that we should keep an eye on future patches. And then, of course, obviously, we had a patch dropped on us that didn't have anything to do with what feedback on. So maybe there's something else
Another
out
patch.
there in the future to look forward to. So obviously, I mean, it just goes to show that patch 2.1 is not done. It's still going to have some more tweaks and some more reiterating. So we might not even see the patch itself drop until August.
Oh well. All right. Well, we got a lot of submissions this week,
Fun.
items and feedback. So we're not going to be able to get through all of them, but we have picked out some of the good ones. Let's jump into it. Let's see. Let's start off with our items. We got submitted from Simon this Rogar's Stone, and this item was just kind of funny because every stat on it has to do with life. It's giving you life. Vite, life percent, life per gen, life per hit. Health globes give you life, and then of course the affix, life per second. So funny find.
Rogar wants to live.
And last week we also asked for the worst items you could find, and you guys answered. So I'm very excited. First of all, Benjamin just submitted this worst rare, and I know there's a lot of bad ones, so no need to keep submitting these. But thought I'd at least give it a shout out. That's a really horrible wand. This is required level 70 too. I can show you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
required level 70, 387 damage, two affixes. Pretty horrible. But this one, I knew these were out there, and thank you, Chris, for sending it in. Stone and Jordan here, it couldn't be any worse unless it gave you one less fury. Like,
Mm-hmm.
minimum cold skull damage, minimum strength, which is a huge feat of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum crit damage or crit chance, minimum damage against elites. So we're here for you, Chris.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just on top of that, it's like cold damage, which isn't that great for barbarians at all.
Yeah, maybe it'll be better soon, but that's about as bad as. I mean, you did get crit chance, but other than that,
Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to re-roll the crit chance
so,
into life on hit
yes,
and keep going until you get a minimum.
yes,
Or,
please. That's our request for you, Chris. Please make this item as bad as it possibly can be.
yeah. Go waste all of your money, gems, and forgotten souls to make it even crappier.
That's even better because then it's like then your item's enchanted and it's still the worst it can be.
Yep.
That is okay. Well, Kai here, he got himself a Shard of Hate. We got a few PTR items. They're not super amazing, but we asked for items from the PTR. Congratulations, Kai, from getting the Shard of Hate. We haven't had a lot of viewers playing PTR, but we also issued out a challenge last week. Who could get the highest in the tiered rifts? And I should have gone the other way with this, but Kai actually won. We got two submissions. Kai beat the other submission and beat myself. He
And
got
beat me.
and yeah, he beat all of us. And if you beat Kai, then shame on you for not submitting your image. Kai got to tier 30, which of course people have gotten further, but this is just the Westmarch Workshop competition. Kai wins, and if you want to submit for next week, we're doing two-man teams, duos. So find a friend and try to beat it. Yeah, that Shard of Hate did roll really well, really good damage. 2460. I should be saying these things out loud for our listeners on Stitcher and iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so whoever can submit the best two-person time on the tiered rifts in the PTR this coming week will be the champion, and me and Nineball are going to try to find some time to do our own as well. Also, I should point out in this image this Kai submitted, he got 3 legendaries from that rift.
Yeah, he got a triple drop on that Greater Rift Guardian.
Yeah. The other submission was from Leviathan. He submitted this Kimbo's Gold he got from the PTR. Nothing too great, but thanks for sending that in. He also pointed out that on the legendary affix it says NYI, which he assumed means not yet implemented. Seems like a good guess. And he got to tier 17. Beat it, but he had a lot of time remaining. He beat it in less than 12 minutes, so he could have gotten further. He said he just got a little bored of tier drifts.
Yep. He also submitted another item.
He did. He submitted another item or another. I don't have it on here right now. What was the other?
Oh,
item?
okay. He finally got his Gyrofalcon's foot that made Blessed Shield free. It's an item that he had been searching for a very long time, and so he finally got it. So just yay! Congrats, Steven.
Sorry, Leviathan didn't get it in there quite in time.
Mm-hmm.
But and Leviathan also sent a picture. I didn't get it in there. He got 3 legendaries on a tier 1 rift. So even on tier 1, you can get 3 legendaries in one run. Doesn't look like the drop chance really changes if you go as you go up. And Leviathan's also hardcore, so it's scary racing against the clock. All right, so yes, those were our item submissions. Let's move on to our feedback section. Do you want to grab one to start it off?
Sure. Let me go through and grab one that we got here. Let's see. This is this one. We actually got a couple ones from Bob the Titan.
Oh, yeah.
And this is actually one of the last ones that he submitted, but it's a lore question, so I want to start it off with that. Lore's question: if you look very closely at the last cinematic in Classic, you'll notice the Black Soul Stone, I think, dropping from Diablo's disintegrating corpse. Is there any lore that explains this? I thought they said that he had been killed once and for all, a possible sequel to the game. And that one, just is obviously, yes, in the ending cinematic to Classic Diablo 3, that is the Black Soul Stone that you see falling out of Diablo's corpse, and it's just kind of like Diablo the Primeval had been defeated, and so what was anchoring him into the world, kind of evaporated, and his soul got trapped back inside the Black Soul Stone. And that, of course, leads into everything in Reaper of Souls, that he's still in the Black Soul Stone. Malthael goes and tries to use that power to destroy Sanctuary and such. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. The Black Soul Stone was recovered, taken back to Angir's Council. The events of Storm of Light happened, and all other types of fun stuff that we got to play through with Fact 5.
Interesting stuff. Well, we got the one from Devin that we kind of talked about, so I'll go through it quickly. He was talking about how the Furnace and ZDPS is really OP, and that to balance this, Blizzard should just give back Crushing Blow so that everyone can be OP. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, and I think a lot of players share the sentiment that the devs should buff whenever possible as opposed to nerfing. But there's a certain line where the ridiculous amount of balancing you would have to do to buff something is just completely disproportional to the problem you're actually fixing, when it could be fixed by just nerfing one item or a couple items. Mm-hmm. And especially in the PTR, I don't think the devs are nearly as concerned with nerfing something because they assume the players playing on there aren't committed to the changes. They understand they're going to change. And I think if we want the game to run as smoothly as possible and we want the devs to be able to get as much stuff into the game, we need to accept some nerfs. Actually, probably a lot of nerfs anytime we get a PTR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that kind of comes down to just Okram's razor. Why make all these things needlessly complicated and such when you could just solve it through a very simple method? Even though it is a nerf, it kind of comes down to time, effort, and efficiency.
Yeah, true story.
Mm-hmm. Next, we got one from Hi. This one is directed more towards me. It is a question about demon hunters. And this one, he really fell in love with Outlaw's multi-rocket build from the Theorycraft Thursday from last month about the Demon Hunter that focused a lot on rockets as well as the strafe. So it's just going through and shooting rockets everywhere. He's got a lot of the items now, but he just says that his biggest problem is getting one-shotted on higher torment difficulties.
Hmm.
Even though it's kiting is super easy, it's like he can't kite forever, and so he makes one misstep and then he's dead. And he wants to know what is it that he could do to change it up. What else could he look at? And just kind of like looking over some of his gear, he's got a pretty amazing setup already. Does some things that I would probably just try changing around for the build itself. Is you're using like hot pursuit and steady aim, which are based around kiting, so that way you stay away from the enemies to prevent them from getting damage on you. If you try changing those out right now for like say awareness or perfectionist, those would be things that would definitely help you a lot. Or even going through and changing marked for death over to shadow power. And so that way, even though you're not using all of your discipline into preparation punishment in order to keep a strafe going permanently, it will, you can get the shadow power up for just a little bit of extra survivability. So it's just I guess a couple things that could be changed, or even if you want to just keep the DPS up and keep the DPS high instead of changing out your mark for death, change out vault.
Nice.
For the shadow power, since you're gonna with Night Stalker, he's gonna have a ton of discipline coming in, especially with strafe and the rocket build. Even though it's low proc chance, you're just hitting so much, it kind of compensates for itself. There's just some things to go through and try messing around a little bit instead of focus more on tanky than you are on kitey and see if that works out for you.
Nice. And maybe I'll just grab Hi's other two questions. He wanted clarification on seasons. You do not lose anything when you start a character on seasons. It is a completely separate server. Everything that's on the normal server stays the way it is. He had gotten some mixed information on that. And he also wanted to know about damage meters and Hi. I think a lot of us would love some damage meters in Diablo.
Oh yeah.
The devs just feel it goes against I guess, idea of Diablo. They don't want to put a lot of pressure on players to just do as much DPS as possible, and they don't allow add-ons. So I don't think we're getting damage meters anytime soon, but we're with you.
It pretty much is just the good old GOM benchmark for what your damage is.
Yeah, yeah, it's as good as it gets.
Let me see. Going on. Excuse me. Another one. We had that hardcore project that we had talked about last one from Bill William.
Yeah.
He went through and he actually gave a link for what he was wanting to do with it, and he actually gave a pretty big breakdown of what it is that he wants to do and how he tends to progress and how he's writing down everything. And so each one of the difficulties, he's going to be taking it up, I think by to the power of like 4 or something like that. I don't understand the math behind it. I'm sorry. Uh, but it definitely is one of those ones where he is, just going through and he's going to run it. He's going to run through the story mode once, and then he's going to do one clear, like one Nephilim Rift and one set of bounties when on normal. And then he'll do it again with 8 runs on hard, 27 runs on expert, all the way up to hopefully completing 1,000 runs on Torment 6 as a hardcore character, limiting himself to where he can only use the gear that he founds in the runs preceding it. I think that he's actually that even those numbers are changed because in further email that we've gotten, he said he's going to up it even more to give himself a little bit more room. so that way he kind of levels out his chances at getting the gear to be able to play those. And also in honor of me and my love for all things Demon Hunter, he is going to start the project with the Demon Hunter. So definitely. I'm gonna really look forward to it. He says he's going to keep a blog journal for the project. I can't wait to by all means send us what your that blog is going to be. I want to see it, and we can talk about it as in future episodes and kind of track your progress until the eventual day when either you complete the project or you die. Either one.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Kind of take some of the pressure off of you deciding when to go up difficulties too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a quick, not so much a question, but just some tips from John Paul here, who had picked out the 4 bounties that give over 400,000 gold and 65 million experience as a way to just quickly farm gold and experience. Now, some of these are faster than others, so I don't know if I would recommend all of them, but here are the 4 that give a lot of gold and experience. Khazard in Act 1, Kreider's Outpost in Act 3, Clear the Forward Barracks in Act 3, and Clear the Hell Rift in Act 4. Clear the Hell Rift can be done really quickly. The Forward Barracks takes forever, so I don't know if I would do that.
I do not like that one.
Yeah, it's just you're going to get a lot in gold experience from it, but you could probably do 2 to 4 other bounties in the time you would do that one.
Yeah, it is. It is just like a one-level dungeon. Those one that you have to go out into the battlefields. Go try and find it, and then that's one that sometimes it is nice and quick, and you just have all the enemies right there at the door. Other times it can spawn a little bit larger, and it only has like 4 spawns, and so you're having to walk around the entire map. But I guess that might work out, because it is only like 4 spawns of mobs, that even though you're having to travel all around in order to get them, that it works out. Because, it is 65 million experience, so I don't know.
If it's the one I'm thinking about, it has a huge first level, and you have to clear the second level?
No, that one I think is just the barracks. It's just that
okay.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. This one. This is one of the random little one-level dungeons that spawns out in the battlefields itself.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, that one you have to kind of do a little bit of running to try and find it.
Cool. But yeah, either way, thank you, John, for sending in his ideas. Let's see, was that it? Is that?
I think that about covers it, because the other ones we kind of went through
Yeah, talked about
and
them.
found before. There was a interesting item. I guess it's a little bit late here, but there was one item that I saw linked on our Diablo,
Yeah.
and it was an item. It was, I believe, it was a sword called Rip Blizzard. So rest in peace, Blizzard. It's over. I'm sorry.
It's pretty ironic that made it in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
They had some good combinations for some names. I mentioned it on a previous episode, but I accidentally salvaged it. But as I found a penetrating gift. It's like that doesn't sound pleasant.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, did you see the Reaper of Goals image that was circulating
Yes.
with the World Cup going on? This image got pretty popular. So here, I'll throw it up on the stream here so you guys can see it. It is Mathael kicking in a goal at the World Cup. Who does he play for? Is that Russia?
That one. What is it? Let me pull it back up here because it's not loaded on my screen yet.
Yeah, it'll be a few seconds before it's on the stream for you. But
Yeah, I am not sure whose team that is.
yeah, someone in chat has to know. If it was Russia, I think that makes sense. That no surprise to me that Mathael would play for Russia. It seems about right.
It is cold, lonely, and full of death.
That's true. That's very nice. But yeah, there's that to close it off. Is there anything else before we?
And then the very first comment is soccer is dumb.
Soccer. Oh yeah, I'm talking to video game players. What am I doing? Putting on soccer stuff. Russia or Belgium, according to the viewers here.
Belgium would make more sense because they actually made it. Yeah, they made it into the semifinals.
There you go. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start the outro music. I think that wraps up episode 15 of Westmarch Workshop. All the coverage, the newest patch on the PTR. I can't wait to get in there and actually play some of the new stuff.
Yeah, it's the coverage you can count on.
Yes, indeed. Well, if you guys want to watch us live, tune in at 6 p.m. Pacific or 9 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays at twitch.tv/ArchonTheWizard. Please continue to send your feedback to westmarchworkshop at blizzpro.com. Don't forget to send in your best time on two-man greater rifts this week, as well as any items you find on the PTR or general feedback.
Yep, and obviously subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher, and you can follow us on at 9ballgamer or at ArchonTheWizard on Twitter.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully we'll see you soon. May all your weapons roll sockets.